from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So all of you are under watch here, so be careful. Uh, but no, really, seriously. So this started actually when some of the folks from the IGRC had attended a similar session at Texas A&M in College Station, and they suggested that we have something like that here, where they can talk about biosecurity, bioterrorism, and agroterrorism. A very relevant topic, of course. So this morning, these two gentlemen who are assigned by the FBI office in Bryan, Texas, both of them work on national security matters and have many years of experience with terrorism and counterintelligence investigations and operations. Special Agent Cannon specializes in biosecurity and bioterrorism. He's also a certified WMD Coordinator, Weapons of Mass Destruction, in case you're wondering what that is, for the FBI. Special Agent Carwile specializes in counterintelligence investigations and also intellectual property and technical research protection. So without any further ado, I'm going to let them talk. They'll decide who goes first and who talks what subject matter, and then we'll open it for question and answer at the end. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Bryan Cannon. We appreciate the offer to be here. And I got to stay in this little box, so I'm trying. And you probably can't see me because I'm short, but we appreciate the offer to be here. We work a lot. Our office is in Bryan, Texas. We have 2 squads, about 15 agents, and a lot of other support personnel. We work a 9-county area. Truly isn't as important to you, but we have people like this all over the country. So we work at all over research institutions to try to embed and understand each other, because we're not out here to arrest people. We're here to try to protect things. So we're going to talk about that today. My colleague, Zach, he's going to talk more about how to protect the research that you are working hard at and the university is working hard at. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we would respond to things and how we need to mutually understand what each other's doing so that to call us, or we can call you when there's issues. So this has nothing to do with people being arrested or anything exciting like that. Although if you ask questions, we'll tell you stories about that as well. So a little bit about me. I'm a WMD coordinator, so Weapons of Mass Destruction coordinator. The FBI sends folks like me through a series of courses at the national labs and other places so that we can be a little bit smart on all the modalities that we consider WMD: chem, bio, rad, nuke, explosives, and then under bio, obviously agroterrorism is a big issue in the area that we work, which is in College Station here. And then we also cover Sam Houston State University. Those are the schools that we cover. I'm certified. I've been in the Bureau for 16 years. I came here about 12 years ago from California. And I started working on this campus, probably with none of you, but in 2008. So I've been here a lot. I have some purple gear from working football games and all kinds of things here. So it's a beautiful campus. So thanks for having us, and I'll let Zach talk about himself when he gets up. But if I can figure this out. Okay, so why am I here today? Why are you here today? You're probably forced to be here, but I'm not. So we look at it in terms of how can we protect what you are doing? I look up here and I look at this brand. This is the brand that you need to protect. We realize that. We don't want to get to the point of any issue that occurs on Prairie View, about Prairie View, or dealing with Prairie View. So we want to try to interlace ourselves with you to protect what you're already doing. Maybe give you a tidbit here, give you a little bit of training there, but we have to understand what it is that you do. I've spent some time out at the farm and talking to different people. We've done some training at A&M and brought some of your folks here to A&M to kind of explain how we do it, because most people don't realize that the FBI cares about things like this. They usually think we're going to respond after something's happened. That's not what we want. Our success is nothing ever happens. I know that's counter to what historically the FBI has done. They usually show up with handcuffs after the bank robbery or whatever. That's not the goal. My goal is to never have to put handcuffs on anyone. Seems a little strange, but my idea is if we can protect what everybody's doing along the way and make sure that your science is safeguarded, then no one's going to have an issue. No one's stealing your research. No one's taking your information to use it for nefarious reasons. So that's kind of what it is. America enjoys a huge research advantage. It takes place at Prairie View. It takes place at A&M. It takes place all over the country. We want to protect that. We want to do it behind the scenes without anyone knowing, except for you, of course, and that way you don't have any issues. So the problem that we have I'm going to talk pretty heavy in kind of bioterrorism, and that takes the shape of a lot of things, and I'll kind of go into that. And of course, I'm open to questions on that. We do a 2-day course, which is what the doctor was kind of alluding to, so I'm trying to truncate that down to a very, very short time just to kind of spend a few minutes with you today. But it's difficult for us when you talk about bio, whether it's human or agro, whatever that occurs, whether it's a data breach or some sort of illness or a vector, is it natural, is it accidental, or intentional? We care about intentional, but sometimes you can't find that out until you've engaged. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. And because of the world that we live in, sometimes you don't know. I would have never guessed when I joined the FBI, and I know Zach's got a few more years on me, but 16 years ago, that we would have states using nerve gas against dissidents in Kuala Lumpur when Kim Jong-un's brother was assassinated. I would have never have guessed that Russia's probably conducting operations in England, according to the news reports. Ricin letters, things like that. You would not expect those things. So in the world that we live in, we have to rule out what's out intentional. For you, as a researcher or an organization or the people that represent this SEAL, you want to know what really happened as soon as possible so you can understand what you really are facing. So our solution is we like to call it safeguarding science. There's a whole presentation that I'm not doing today about that, but it's essentially being in lockstep with you in order to harden the target of what you're already working on, whether it's your travel, the research that you're working on, your cyber domain, because people want to skip in line. You worked really hard on your research, and they want to come in at the back end and maybe steal it and use it for other reasons. And that does not hurt, or that does not help you. So information sharing, I have access to information that happens every day all over the country at different levels of classification. But the one that's the most important is the lower level in classification. My colleagues that do exactly what I do all over the country, whether that's Nebraska or Washington, D.C. or L.A., we all respond to incidents, and we get called from people like you about things that have happened. A loss of this, a data breach, a suspicious email, and we share that amongst ourselves every day. So that way when I engage with my partners in my 9 counties, whether it's at this university or others, I can see if what happened here just happened in Long Beach or Kentucky, and we can kind of get together and figure out maybe this is intentional because it's happening multiple places. And that only works if we can understand each other. And things like having us here today kind of starts that opening. We're not big scary guys in fedoras running around trying to do the old days. We're here. I've been on this campus hundreds and hundreds of times since 2008. Probably never seen. There's a few people I've seen that I've worked with, but you probably never knew I was here. Worked with the president's office. Worked with police departments over the years. So we're not out here making a mess of things. Our history of working close to RELIS, the system office, and of course A&M, we work on their campus every day. So we're used to working in an academic environment. We're not there pulling students out of class and doing things like that. We are working hand in hand, in concert with researchers and faculty and staff and administration. So if you have questions about that, we can talk about it. So, just a little bit about the FBI. We're the lead agency for terrorism. That's pretty evident nowadays. Yesterday was 9/11, your anniversary, so you're familiar with that. But really, in red there in the middle of the slide is prevention. The only way we prevent things from happening is engaging with one another. If we don't know that you're working on some new project that needs protecting, or that another country or another adversary would be interested in harming, we can't help you. We just cannot help you. If it's hiding in the depths of a computer in the back of an office, in the back of another office, and another country is really interested in stealing it, but we don't know that it's there, we can't help you protect it, and that's one of the things that we want to do to prevent. So sometimes we exercise our criminal investigative authority. Yes, I do have cuffs. They're rusty. I don't use them very often because my job is to kind of engage with people and to prevent that. However, sometimes the best way to protect things is to deal with the bad actors. And sometimes you have to make those arrests if something happens, and then that sends a message. across the community. That has happened more times than we can count across the country, that foreign adversaries or actual students have adulterated research or stole research in campuses. So that's something we want to do. So both Zach and I represent this. We're both a law enforcement entity and an intelligence entity. The intelligence is important to you not because we want your information to make intelligence. We want to use our intelligence to help form what you're doing. We want to tell you, hey, this country really is after whatever it is you're working on. So then you can have an educated point of view about when you travel or when people reach out and ask to join your projects or fund your projects and things like that. So it's not something we're hiding. It's something we want to share with you, but we can't share it with you unless we know what it is you want. So that's kind of the goal today. The FBI is scattered all over. We have offices all over the world and what we call legal attaches in the upper right there. And essentially what that does for people like Zach and I is we can immediately reach out to our colleague in Stockholm or Sana'a, Yemen, or wherever it is, and exchange information with their counterpart very quickly about issues. And that could be everything from credit card fraud to kidnappings to terrorism. And that happens without a beat. You don't have to worry about all those people. We do. You just got to worry about one or two of us, and you can reach out to us, and we can go there and take care of it. So in the bio, I mentioned I was a WMD coordinator. It just means I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, and I understand a little bit more than most agents, probably a lot more than almost every police officer, just because they're focused other ways. So essentially what I do is I try to understand your work and the work of others in the field, so that when things happen that look potentially accidental or by that may look accidental or natural occurring, I can come in and explain to, let's say in this case, the police department, hey, you might want to look at this because there's more to this picture, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But part of my job is to go out and talk to people here or elsewhere, and I respond. If you look at the little diagram there, training and exercises, we talked about that. There's a couple people, at least one in here that attended some of our training. Incident response in the upper right, that's what we don't ever want to do. We don't ever want to have to respond, in this case, let's say to the farm here, that something happened, because then we've already failed on our end. So we don't want to do that, but that's what I do. And a lot of times when something happens, I end up having to talk to someone who's really smart, like all of you, and try to organize it and understand it so that I can talk to someone else about what we need to do, because they may be looking at it a different way. So this is what we do. Most people don't know that we have this within the FBI. They think of other parts of the FBI. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm out trying to talk to different, what we call modalities. Yesterday, I was with the Texas Poultry Federation at their annual board holders meeting in College Station, talking about threats from the virulent Newcastle disease issues they're having in California, where environmental rights groups are coming in and breaking into poultry houses and broiler houses, and then that's spreading issues, and it completely breaks all the biosafety and biosecurity issues. So those are things that are out there. That's the kind of intelligence. Colleagues of mine in Sonoma County had to respond when that happened. I get the information. That's stuff that I can share to whoever needs that, so that you know that this is happening. I know that you're not a big poultry institution. However, it's the same type of threat. So today, my colleague that does exactly what I do, he's still in College Station. They're touring the nuclear reactor at A&M, trying to educate some of our other agents on how we would respond if something happened. So that's kind of a picture of what I do. We also respond and we coordinate with all these other agencies. So we work hand in hand with USDA, APHIS, CBP, other agencies that have effect on your work. So like to get out and talk to people. We like to do tabletops. We like to make people understand this is what it would look like if something bad happened. How would you report it? How would we respond? How can we prevent it from happening? Spent a lot of time at the vet school at A&M, working on, there's a pandemic summit coming up in November, bringing in experts from all over. We're bringing in some of our experts that respond to some of these intentional outbreaks. So we try to work hand in hand with academia before things happen. You may recognize a few things here that I'm not going to discuss, but DIY synthetic biotech. people working in, they've got their CRISPR and they're working on things and it's just a hobby. There's some threats related to that, but we do outreach with those folks as well so they can just understand that there's some ethical issues that sometimes we can bring forward that schools cannot. And I won't delve into that unless you have questions about it. But in November of last year, we hosted a animal plant health crim epi class at A&M. And we brought together a lot of folks from USDA, FBI, all over the state, from the USDA guys that ride horses on the border that are looking for ticks coming across in livestock, all the way to investigators that would be investigating intentional attacks. So it's a good way for everyone from the research side and from applied sciences to understand how it would look. And all right, so this is a busy slide, so I'm going to sum it up for you. If something were to happen, a person like myself would engage with you. And there's a little diagram at the very top that I'll have here in a second. But essentially, we want to make a determination of, is the threat real or not? And if the threat is real, we're going to engage with you about how we're going to respond. And this is that little diagram at the top. Is it even technically feasible? Does somebody else actually want to do any harm? And then is it, whatever the threat is it practical? You know, a backpack nuke made out of matchsticks, it's a threat, but it's probably not very realistic. In the bio world, it's very difficult because of the delay in which symptoms onset, the time and distance between when something was introduced to the time that you figured it out, how hard it is to go backwards in time and figure out who it was that went onto the farm, when did they go on the farm, when was their cell phone hitting on the farm, because it's probably 7 or 8 days before you've determined that something bad happened. So that's something we do. It's codified in executive order where the FBI is the lead for any kind of bio, nuke, rad, chem incident in the U.S. We have to institute this process regardless. And this is the process that will get you the resources in the lower right-hand corner, you know, the national stockpile or anything like that happens. Of course, we never want to get to that situation. We want to work way before that. So in bio, one of the issues we have, and this was a video that was captured, and I'm going to try to make it work. I don't know if I can. If you take a second, it may be slow. Can you see it? I don't know if it's even working here. Okay. So what just happened, very quickly, I'm going to try to do it again. Is cows are curious animals. Something was just thrown over the fence, right? In this particular case, it was a couple of socks that were rubbed with a gelatin material, but it could easily have been foot and mouth or any other thing. And this was posted by an environmental group talking about how easy it would be to, this is in San Joaquin Valley in California. If you've ever been there, you'll know about it before you get there because of the smell. There's huge stockyards. But you can get to these gates easily. And so the cows are curious animals. You know that better than I do. And now, days and days and days later, you're going to start having onset at sale yards and other places. And it was just that easy. So biosafety and biosecurity measures are very, very important. Whoever responds to the first outset, the veterinarian on call or an extension agent that responds to something as a result of one of these cows becoming ill later, or what are they going to do? Who are they going to call? How are you going to be able to track that back to something? So obviously you have a farm here. That's of concern to us because that is the livelihood. We want to protect this seal here. But we don't expect anything to happen here. There's no threat, but it is something we need to think about. How do we rule things out? Is it intentional or accidental? So threats to the agricultural sector. The world is getting more connected. Food supplies and water supplies are bigger issues. We have to look at things as who would benefit from disrupting your work, the things that you're working on. Who would benefit from your work? And Zach will talk more about that. Who would benefit from stealing your work, your research? What are the motivations and goals of the adversary? Those are things we look at, and a lot of that is drawn by intel. What methods are available? There's certain countries that have very large populations that their food supply is important to their national security is our nuclear stockpile or anything else. Because if they can't feed their people, it's total Armageddon for them. There's certain countries that will do anything to find the technology they need to protect their food supply or to increase their output. They'll steal any technology that'll take that. That is number one priority, because if they know they cannot retain control if their food supply is threatened. I take it from the other side. If our food supply is damaged, they benefit as well. And there's some documents back there about agro-espionage. There's many cases going on. You've probably seen them. Chinese nationals have been arrested for stealing seeds and things like that. There's some examples back there on that back table, and we can talk about that more later. But those are things that we get paid to look at. Who would benefit if something happens to your research? Who would benefit if something happens to our food supply? And again, we look at that by sharing intelligence. So why agriculture? I won't belabor the point. One of the things I like to make sure people understand is, one of the things that I want you to take away from this is not any one slide or any one bullet. Is I want you to realize there are agencies and people within those agencies, namely Zach and I and the FBI, that we understand and we want to protect what you're working on. I want you to walk away from here going, I don't remember exactly what that guy said, but I know that the FBI is interested in helping us with our agricultural research and our agricultural protecting our products. So I'm not going to bore you with this, but we look at agroterrorism in these stages. Somebody has to go look at it, whether that happens online or not. There's a few with asterisks, and I put those on there because a lot of those are happening via the computer nowadays. They will ask you questions, seemingly innocuous, whether they want to be added as an intern or they want to add themselves onto your research project, and they're actually trying to get information. There's tests of security that can take place in the cyber domain, or actually physically trying to go see if the gate is locked or drive by, see if somebody stops them. That happens more often than you know. One of those espionage seed cases, it was so simple, the person that did it, he literally drove to a research field. What company was it? It was one of the major agricultural companies in Iowa. He just drove down the field and just started taking the seeds of the crops. And then, so it's something as simple as that. You would think that's very novice and rudimentary. You're thinking it's some secret spy world. But once you got it, you got it. And how much money did that company lose in the process? Because in this case, China really wanted the advancement so they could feed their people. They got to acquire things. They got people out of place. Some of the things I've talked about out at the farm here is who responds? Do they think about it other than maybe somebody just a car broken down outside the gate or on one of the far fences? Or now there's tire tracks through there. Is it a guy that just wants to run around and four-wheel, or is he's testing something? So those are things that we like to know about so that we can help try to rule those out. And then there was an incident in Gonzales, Texas, not too long ago of about 17 animal rights activists that broke into a broiler facility, a poultry, and they came in there to break things and do that. But what they did is, they didn't follow any biosafety measures because that's not what they were there for. They didn't have boots. They brought in what they brought, and they left with what they left with. There's been 15 of them arrested as a result for local charges, but that's the type of thing. Once somebody has it in their mind that whatever you're doing is something they want to interfere with, and they will go do that. So as part of the dry runs, number 6, one of those 15 people that was arrested actually tried to get employment there about 2 months before, so we get some inside information. So those are things we like to look at, and we can help you go with. We can kind of help do database checks and things on strange people that are trying to get access to things. So one of the things that we like to do is, although we're not always welcome, we do like to engage with the academic community. We like to think we're pretty good at it because of our time up in College Station and working with A&M, my time here on this campus, working with some of you and other people on campus, is you have expertise that we don't have. Sometimes we just need to bounce a question off you. Why is it that somebody wants your research, or why is it somebody wants to affect your research? because we don't necessarily maybe understand, but by talking to you, you can help us find the answer that we're looking for on why somebody is trying to get, why was 2 gigabytes of your data on the mainframe stolen last night? Why would they want that? We can go backwards and try to figure that out. That happens more than you know. We can also help you if you have issues with certain foreign entities or companies coming in. We can also help with the VPR's office and others, try to look at that on the behind the scenes and try to give you some information, empower you with information, say this is something you should be careful with because this same entity, whether it's a university or a research facility overseas, has done this, this, and this at Pepperdine, or this, this, and this at Cornell, or this, this, and this at A&M. They're not going to offer that to you on their business card that they did that. We will be in a position to know that, and then you can inform your decision making off of that. We do that very, very frequently across the system as it stands now. Things happen, we do a little research, come back and say, can't tell you what to do, but you might want to look at this, this, or this. And we want to make you aware. And I'm going to end my part on a couple things. One is I want to make you aware that there is a threat. More importantly, I want to make you aware that we actually care about the threat. There is somebody at the FBI or multiple people at the FBI that understand university environments, academia, research, and that we can get involved early and try to prevent things from happening. So that's kind of one of the things I do. I have a number of, before I transition to Zach, I have a number of handouts and slick sheets and things there about biosecurity. Talks about our jurisdiction. The FBI has jurisdiction over select agents. I know there's no select agents currently on this campus. That shows you why we have the authority to do some of the things that we do. If you're interested or you're concerned or while we're here, there's some stuff about espionage, which you are not immune from. Trust me, you are not immune from that. And then I'll leave you with 2 other things. One is an apology, which I know is terrible. You get up here and apologize. I have a commitment at the debates tonight at TSU, so I will be leaving right around 12:05. So if you have to hit me, I will stay as long as I can, but I have to be down there at Texas Southern. And then the last thing I'll say is this is a great university. I've worked here a lot since '08. You don't get to pick the people that walk in the door. Students, employees, people that want to reach out to you and ask for recommendations, access to your projects. They want to give you free labor, which will help you move your project towards publication. In 2010, I finished a case here with great cooperation with this university. We arrested an architecture student. He was trying to go overseas and fight for Al-Qaeda. We arrested him in the middle of the night, getting on a boat in the ship channel in Houston. So we did that without running around the campus and making a fool of ourselves or causing any problems. We worked it hand in hand with the university, so they knew what we were doing at all times. It's an example, not because I want you to know about that case. You can Google it if you want, but I want you to know that we work hand in hand. We work behind the scenes. You don't get to pick who shows up, unfortunately. You want the best and the brightest, and we want you to have the best and brightest, but not all of them have the same goals that you do. So I'm going to hand it over to Zach. He's going to transition into some other things.
You guys hear me? You need me on the mic for the... How about now? Awesome. All right, I'm going to make y'all get involved now. How many do we have in the room here from the College of Agriculture? Vast majority. Awesome. Do we have any from the College of Engineering? I love it. Okay. Before I get kind of into my piece of the presentation here, which will be very brief, can anybody think of why the FBI, a counterintelligence investigator from the FBI, would be on a college campus, what our interest would be there? Counterproliferation. Does anybody know what counterproliferation means? So counterproliferation means we're trying to prevent technologies, processes, whether it's defense-related or some other controlled technology for some reason. We're trying to prevent our adversaries or other sanctioned entities or countries from accessing, getting a hold of this technology. The vast majority of my work within the system deals with counterproliferation. Engineering, obviously, there's a lot of different research areas where counterproliferation comes into play. A lot of the stuff that the College of Engineering is working on is going to be controlled under the EAR, which is the list that the Department of Commerce regulates. Prairie View has a huge portfolio of DoD research. Some of this research could be covered under the munitions list restrictions. So again, these are where counterproliferation might touch Prairie View and might touch College of Engineering. My College of Agriculture friends, do you know how counterproliferation, how that might touch into your research? Let's talk about seeds. Bryan brought up seeds, right? He brought up seeds from a case out of Little Rock that Monsanto, by the name, was the name of the company. I hate it when somebody asks me a question that I should know on the spot and my mind goes blank. So anyway, Monsanto was the seed company that he's talking about. So certainly, from that perspective, that was an intellectual property case. But let's talk about genetics. Let's talk about plant pathogen research. Let's talk about rice fungal research, things like that. Why do we care about the bad guys getting a hold of that technology? Because, again, I'm not a scientist, but my understanding is it's one step. It's not that tough to go from here, this legitimate research. We want to make sure that we make our crops more productive. We want to feed everybody that we can. It's not a tall leap to go from there to we can weaponize this stuff. And again, I'm kind of getting into Bryan's area. I certainly have no expertise in that area. But that's one of the proliferation concerns we see within the College of Agriculture, both here and at the system level as well. Another place that the Bureau's investigative interests kind of come on campus is theft of intellectual property, economic espionage. 1996, Congress decides that they're going to pass a law called the Economic Espionage Act, which essentially states that the theft of our trade secrets, U.S. companies' trade secrets, is a matter of U.S. national security. That when a state-sponsored entity decides that they're going to steal your proprietary, your trade secret research, that is an issue of national security for the United States. So we find ourselves on college campuses and in research facilities a great deal trying to help folks protect their proprietary, their trade secrets, their research from theft. The U.S., the academic environment is a very ethical environment. I can't say the same for all of our colleagues and all the folks overseas. The ethics that we have here, displayed here, are not always in play there. Research institutes, college campuses are considered big targets for our adversaries to steal research. Some of this research is protected by trade secrets laws. And so that's another reason we're on college campuses, to work with researchers to kind of help educate them, help them protect their technology. Those are kind of the two main reasons you might have an occasion to talk to an FBI agent on campus. Has anybody had any contact with the Bureau? So a couple. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. Generally, what we try to do, we really do try to make sure that we coordinate appropriately. We don't want to put anybody in a tough spot, and we don't want leadership on campus to think that we're running around here doing things that we're not telling anybody about. So why is academia targeted? So we talked about the first one there, to obtain restricted information or products. A lot of our adversaries have no qualms about not worrying about spending billions of dollars to upgrade their research infrastructure when they can steal it. Again, they don't have these ethical concerns that we have here. So that's another reason. They're trying to bypass expensive research and development. Some of these countries have, at the national level, have a plan in mind that they're trying to satisfy. And one of the ways they try to satisfy some of the basic tenets of that plan is by theft of technology from U.S. researchers. They might view academia, our adversaries might view academia as a soft target, so they might use it to spot and assess potential people for recruitment to bring technology back to that country. They might choose to exploit the student visa program for improper purposes. One of the things we see is that a lot of foreign talent that's coming over to the United States is free. That makes it very attractive for PIs in the United States. I understand that. But again, if their entire if the entire nickel for their time here is being paid for by a scholarship group or a foreign government, there's a quid pro quo. just kind of something to think about. And then the second to the last bullet there, it speaks for itself. U.S. universities perform 31% of the nation's total research, basic and applied, and 56% of the nation's basic research. So again, that's military stuff, that's genetics, that's how to feed people, that's alternative fuels, all this kind of stuff, which is very important, which commercially here can be very viable and is great for quality of life. But then you work on it all your life. It's your career, 20 years of your life put into it, and then somebody comes and takes it, and it's gone. So that's why our adversaries look at academia. And then this 2009 study talking about how much research at academia is supported by the federal government, NIH, NSF, DARPA, DOD, DOE, et cetera. And this accounts for $33 billion of the university's total annual R&D spending. So again, the FBI has an investigative interest if fraud's being committed against the government, procurement fraud. The FBI has an obligation to protect DOD research, which is a big one here, but also NIH research that the federal government is actually sponsoring. We have a responsibility to do the best we can to protect it. How are we going to do that? I think the best way for us to do that is to work with the PIs, to work with the leadership, to develop, to educate not only the PIs, but to educate grad students and postdocs and some of the other staff here that you encounter on a daily basis. Work together to kind of help develop a plan to protect your research. What are some of the tactics our adversaries use? Some of you may have, who's heard of the talent recruitment programs? Has anybody heard of these? So talent recruitment programs, essentially our foreign adversaries will ask someone to put in an application to be recognized as a foreign talent in a certain area or associated with a certain university. And it's a very prestigious title to have. Along with that title, potentially what may come with that is, we're going to pay you a little bit of money. We'll set up a lab for you over here. We're going to staff it for you. We're going to get you an apartment. We're going to pay for your expenses in our country, not U.S., but in that country. And oh, by the way, we want you to bring that awesome research you've been doing over there. We want you to bring it over here and continue it. Again, foreign students or visiting professors, you guys have to bring over. The FBI does not want to discourage collaboration with anybody internationally. We understand that the lifeblood of academia is collaboration and is bringing over folks from all over the world to bring in, because there's a lot of talent out there to bring in to kind of help move these research programs away. Our adversaries recognize that and can potentially exploit that. What do we try to do as the FBI? Again, we try to work with your leadership to help you look for things to watch out for when you get that email from somebody looking for a postdoc slot, when you get that email from a foreign researcher who wants to collaborate with you. Kind of some of the, what we call some of the soft power platforms, language and cultural training, ways to kind of come in and subtly influence U.S. opinion or your opinion about a foreign government or a foreign adversary. Some of the unsolicited emails or invitations, other cyber techniques. Does anybody know what spear phishing is? So spear phishing is somebody sends you an email, you don't know who it is. It looks like it's coming from somebody that is legitimate. You click on a link, and that runs a program that sends a malicious software into your computer and potentially onto your network that can steal technology, that can shut you down, etc. So those are kind of some of the cyber techniques that we've seen. Funding and donations. We're starting to see an uptick with foreign companies providing gift donations to researchers. And as we all know, the gift donations are not supposed to have any quid pro quo. But maybe down the road, a year or two, they're like, hey, we gave you that $500,000 for your project. We'd like for you to sponsor these 3 postdocs that work for us. Those are kind of some of the things to keep an eye on. Outright elicitation. You're at a conference, you're at a seminar, somebody walks up to you and starts asking you about your DoD research or your seed research. You don't know this person, and they're asking you some kind of provocative questions that kind of, for me, the meter is always, does it make the hair on the back of your neck stand up? If it does, These are kind of really good things to report to your leadership, report to your export control people, whoever is appropriate in your organization. What we hope to be able to do is get on a relationship with those people where when these kind of things are happening to y'all and y'all report it to them, they give us a call. We have access to a lot of different information streams. We can kind of run to see if this is a pattern with this individual or a pattern with this kind of technology. It's very helpful for us to, again, help prepare people down the road to help them better defend themselves against solicitation like this. Again, the joint research opportunities, we want you to collaborate. You have to collaborate. We just want to make sure we're doing everything to help you protect your technology. The insider threats, this is probably the most nefarious because these are people that you trust. These are people that are working for you as a postdoc or a PhD, and lo and behold, they're stealing your stuff and they're sending it back to another country. And since Brian's on a tight schedule, we wanted to make sure to give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions, so that's kind of my bit. Yes, sir.
The PED, the porcine endemic diarrhea incident, and I know it's not.
I didn't bring those slides, so I don't want to.
No, could you just highlight its effect on the economics and potential purchases of companies and things like that?
Yeah. So Lil's talking about is there's a. I don't know if you can hear me. There was an incident a few years back where there was an introduction of PED into the U.S. and it affected prices of a particular company at the same time that a company in another country was trying to acquire that business. So because it was a biological agroterrorism potential issue, the problem was by the time we knew that it occurred, I say we, not just the FBI, but the community, veterinarians on the ground, the employed veterinarians at that particular company that had this outbreak, they didn't know until days and weeks later. So coming back and trying to do what we would consider traditional forensics, like whose phone was near there, who traveled, you would be shocked and amazed and horrified how many vials and slides and data is intercepted across the U.S. border every day. Those are one of the things that we respond to. And so trying to go backwards and figure out who traveled into the country potentially with a vial or a rag that was already in a Ziploc bag somewhere in their carry-on that had this, and then track that unknown crossing to this particular point of origin. Very, very difficult. And throw in the fact that companies have seals and stockholders, just like universities, and a lot of times, unfortunately, they don't like to explain what happened and they don't like to advertise it because stocks go, well, guess what? This other company that tried to acquire them at that time, they wanted that to happen because that industry, the food supply and the economic share was heavily dominated in this other country that we think may have had a role in that. They had the most to gain. So it goes back to some of the slides there. So it is happening. You just don't hear about it a lot because you're busy doing what you do. That's what we get paid to do, is pay attention to that. So in that 2-day class, we do a case study on that particular incident and kind of throw that out to you. So a lot of it had to do with bioinformatics. They're able to, this other company knew what the research that was being posted by that company on their herds and their research and their feed and all that. And we believe it was taken by that other country and looked at and said, okay, what would be the best way to impact that herd and that product based off of the bioinformatics and the testing data they've already published about their herd. And it's kind of the same concern about the 23andMe. You've put all your DNA data out there. It's owned by a foreign company. They have access to all your foreign data. So there are people in HHS and others that are concerned about, you can run computer models against our DNA because we all have different DNA from all over, but we've given millions and millions and millions of snapshots of our DNA uploaded to a private company. The server is in another country. and they can run the data against it. Say, okay, what would work against this DNA model? We never have to do that. They can run it all day long and every day and say, if we adjust this, or we adjust that, and make it a little bit more virulent. So that's what you're kind of talking about. We'd like to come back and do more, and this is a very short setting, but maybe there's ways we can talk specifically about that in a different group or whatever, but I appreciate that. Questions?
With Walter Reed quite a bit. We worked a lot on zoonotic diseases. Studied in Nairobi and then the University of Georgia and all that. And a lot of those were diseases that existed in like South America, Latin America, the Asian continent, and Africa and other places. They weren't really diseases of the North America, really. But we found out that with time, because of travel and because of movement of pet animals, for example, across borders or international travel, they went to Spain or other places, some of those diseases were popping up in the Midwest, for example, in Ohio and other places. These are zoonotic diseases. I would imagine with time, since then, and the movement of human traffic and animals across borders, that some of those zoonotic diseases, which are life-threatening, yeah, they were being worked on by World Health Organization, that they may now, and they were talking about the southern states now being a place where these diseases would be found. So that's more biosecurity, right? It's not really a terrorist activity going on. It's just that somebody went to South America, they got Chagas disease or leishmaniasis. Well, they came back to the States, and now they're moving with that disease back into the country. How do you address those?
So I mean, it's a biosafety issue, but knowing how it got there is an issue of concern for everyone. So we can rule out that it wasn't intentional. So people restore confidence in the process in which they get their food, they international travel, things like that. So what I kind of think you're referring to is we've had a number of outbreaks of things that normally aren't endemic here, and sometimes they're intercepted at the ports of entry. Sometimes you don't see it until it shows up in our herds or in, hopefully not our people. And then you got to kind of go backtrack. Well, epidemiologists do that for a living. But how do you do that when the people that are affected, that have the sick herd or whatever, don't want you to find out because they don't want anybody to be upset at their brand name? So that's where sometimes having law enforcement involved can help get to the bottom of it. If it ends up being a biosafety issue, fine. But I can tell you that the powers that be and CEOs of company, deans of universities, chancellors of systems, they want to know why so that they can mitigate it. Because I think in Zach's world and in my world, any blemish on this in the research or biosafety or whatever makes it harder for you to do your job when you want to go publish or when you want to get the next research grant. So that's where we want to get involved early. And by finding it out and doing the origin studies and figuring out how it got here, it goes back to ethics and things like that that Zach talked about. I've had incidents at another university not too far from here where, you know, a grad assistant wanted to come to that university for 4 or 5 months only because he could have access to certain labs. Well, guess what he brought in his bags? All of these soil samples from this one country that had certain select agents endemic in the soil. He just did it because he wanted to further his research so he could publish. He needed to get to this lab. Did he do it to hurt anybody? We had to stop it before that. I mean, that happens because of the ethical issues. You guys are very ethical. You follow certain safeguards within your science because you know it's the right way. That's not always when people are trying to jump in the front of the line, whether they're trying to steal or they're trying to just get ahead on their research. They will cut corners, and one of those is bring things in here that should not be brought in. And you're not immune to that. You're not immune. It's a beautiful campus tucked away, but Houston is encroaching on you, and your profile is being raised. The system's pumping money. You're getting lots of grants and research and all the things that you wanted to do forever. And it's a great university. Attention is coming, and having passive and active measures to protect that starts with understanding we are not immune. We're not immune. I talk about yesterday at the poultry thing. I was talking about Texas used to be immune from animal rights issues by geography. It was a pretty rural economy. Most people kind of grew up around plants and animals and ranching, and there was some basis to that. That is no longer the case. So some of the things that traditionally we only thought about would be in Portland or Denver or maybe LA, San Francisco, Sacramento, that stuff is all here now. In Gonzales, Texas, people coming from Austin and other places have come in and breaking into boiler houses. You never saw that before, so the threat is real. Nobody says the farm is a need, and that's something we want to stay on top of. You have great staff and faculty out there. They're going to pick up on things quickly, but we want to, the testing of that may be with emails, months and years before that, about trying to get somebody in place, asking questions, and that we want to know about those so we can help inform you and people in your office and other offices. Hey, you got to be careful, because now all of a sudden you went from no questions about your facility for years to now your web traffic's off the hook. Now let's try to figure out why. Well, you just posted that you got a new grant. You just posted that you had a new research publication. So those are things we do regularly. We want to help out if we can here. So it's a long answer to your question.
Things like that. The vast majority of those things are legitimate. But my question is, does the FBI or some other agency have a database of maybe journals or conferences or something that maybe have raised red flags in the past?
So one of the things we try to do, again, when we work with the leadership is we want to encourage the leadership, whether it's at the system, at Texas A&M, at Prairie View, to encourage their PIs or researchers to kind of, if they have concerns about, or if they want to check something out, if you will, to kind of report that up to them. We hope to be able to engage routinely on issues like this with Prairie View. And the answer to your question is, there will be certain individuals, certain research entities that may have we've had a concern with in the past, or we've had some unusual experiences within the past. And so the answer is yes. We can certainly work with the universities, work with the PIs if they have concerns like that. The only reason we're able to identify these places or these people is when people like you who've had these concerns in the past report it. So it's kind of that in the Army, I think they kind of call it like a self-licking ice cream cone, right? I mean, it's just kind of, if the people report problems that are occurring to them, that helps us kind of build this portfolio of potential bad actors and potential places you might want to avoid. And we do want to work with academia to prevent, to help educate them and to help them be aware, at the very least, just know that, hey, I'm going to this conference here, and last year, 10 guys that do what I do were approached by this guy. So when you go, I mean, you still want to go, you still want to present, you still want to do whatever you're going to do there, but now your radar's up a little bit, and that kind of helps you defend. We call those kind of defensive briefings. That kind of helps you be prepared in case the same thing happens to you.
Just one thing to that. At the leadership level, and the research compliance, VPR level, and deans and things like that, if no one ever reports anything suspicious, they think things are great. Until we find the instances and we say, hey, look, that same guy is asking for this, this, and this, and he's a bad actor, and he's in Indonesia or wherever he is. We can't come back and inform you that you have a problem. Because if everyone thinks they don't have a problem, then they don't have a problem until you do have a problem. And that's something, it's only as good as the information that we get, because we're not monitoring your emails to know that you're getting unsolicited requests. It's only when you raise it to someone, we can look at it and go, you know what, you do have a problem, because that is a sophisticated attempt to get information that you're working on. Then we can help work with the university, you specifically, Reverend, say, how do we safeguard what you're working on? Did you just go present somewhere? We can reverse engineer. Maybe this is why you're being targeted all of a sudden for theft of property or your research ideas or some other act. So the absence of reporting does not make things good. And I know hopefully the dean would agree that you would want to know if there's a problem, because otherwise you just think there isn't. And you can't. There is a problem. I can tell you that right now. So We work at, there wouldn't be 15 of us up in Bryan working if there was a problem, if there was no problem. So. Any more?
One more question, maybe?
My information is available. That's my email. That's Zach and I. That office number will work for both of us. If you reach out to me, you can get it. Dr. Ben Hazim has my information as well. He has my cell phone number and things like that. So if you need something, we'll be happy to come out. We're here, coming through here all the time anyway. We just may not be engaging on this specific thing, this specific day, because we also help the PD on things. You know, the FBI does a lot of different things. So more than happy to do that. Just because we sit in Bryan and we're close to the flagship and then the system and RELIS doesn't mean this is not important to us. So, you know, we're only a phone call away. We can start answering questions. You know, we're here to help, I guess is the buzzword.